Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Every single time, folks, they're the biggest scammers in the game, the biggest con artists, the biggest frauds. It's kind of ironic because they're always pointing the finger at President Trump, claiming that he's a con man, he's a fraud. But Donald Trump has consistently proved himself to be the exact opposite. His problem is that he isn't a fraud, and that's why they hate him, because he's not willing to put up the act. He's just his authentic self, and it offends them so deeply. But yet again, more classic leftist progression. They point the finger and accuse and label others of exactly what they are. These Democrat politicians are the biggest frauds in the game, Let's take Elizabeth Warren, for instance, who literally lied throughout her entire professional career, pretending she was Native American to get special DEI-style benefits. She got into Harvard because she claimed to be a Native American and got in based on affirmative action. Meanwhile, she's possibly the whitest person on planet Earth. But of course, it's not just Pocahontas. No, another massive fraud just got exposed, and that's Ilhan Omar, who's built her entire political identity on the lie that she's a working mom with student debt. Oh, she's fighting for the little guy against corruption, against corporate greed, and against the elites. But guess what? The receipts are now in, and it turns out that she has become every little thing that she rants about. Yeah, as if committing marriage fraud and marrying your own brother wasn't enough of a warning sign that this woman was a total con artist. Well, this ought to be the latest wake-up call. Socialist progressive Ilhan Omar has gone from whining about her student loans to now apparently, according to the New York Post, being worth upwards of $30 million. And it's not because she built anything. She doesn't have any patents. She didn't start a company. No, but rather it's very obvious she's used her political power to funnel cash to her lover turned husband, and now they're freaking riding the gravy train all the way to the bank. Just utter hypocrisy, but most importantly, outright corruption. Let's talk about Ilhan Omar, shall we? We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first point out that Ilhan Omar is a total liar. Here's an important piece of context that really makes the story worse than it is at first glance. Just a few months ago, Ilhan Omar was lashing out at anybody who suggested that she was a millionaire. There was a rumor going around that apparently her wealth had skyrocketed a tremendous amount, and she actually responded and called it ridiculous, categorically false. And of course, she did what every good leftoid does. She blamed it on a right-wing disinformation campaign, right? She's the victim of right-wing attacks from all those evil right-wing racists who hate her just because of her skin color. Yeah, okay, sure. She told Business Insider at the time, maybe try checking my public financial statements and you'll see that I barely have thousands, let alone millions. Well, people ended up checking, and now her latest disclosure shows her total net worth between $6 and $30 million. And that's not a typo, that's a 3,500 increase in a single year. I have the financial disclosures right over here. I'll post them up on screen and you could refer to what's written here as I go through the story. So you might be asking, well, where did the money come from? Well, obviously, it's her husband, Tim Minette, who of course we've been covering for a while, the guy that she had an affair with while he was her campaign consultant, the guy who we previously covered owns a firm that pocketed $2.9 million in Ilhan Omar campaign donations during the 2020 election cycle. Well, now apparently this guy, Mr. Tim Minette, he's suddenly become Mr. Success Story. From what we understand, Minette owns two companies, and his ownership stake in those companies were worth roughly $50,000 by the end of 2023. But now he's done a full-on pivot. He's apparently running a winery and a venture capital fund that suddenly, out of nowhere, has ballooned to being worth tens of millions of dollars. Are you freaking kidding me? A winery and a venture capital firm. Please, that's got to be the oldest money laundering setup in the book. Oh, well, what can I say? I'm now an expert winemaker. I've been training my artisan skills in the south of France. Oh, and I guess he's now a financial expert too, running a highly successful venture capital firm. Yeah, who freaking believes this? If you believe this, I have beachfront property in Oklahoma to sell you. And the craziest part is that based on Ilhan Omar's disclosure, Minette's firm, Rose Lake Capital, is apparently worth $25 million, but is bringing in zero income. Yet if you go on the company's website, they brag about having $60 billion in assets under management and deep global networks in business, politics, banking, and diplomacy. Translation, he's trading on his wife's political power and influence. Obviously, it's the Nancy Pelosi playbook. And all of this as Ilhan Omar pretends that it's totally normal that her situation of being a working divorced mom with student debt has now magically shifted to becoming a multi-millionaire powerhouse overnight. Yeah, pretty soon we're going to see Ilhan Omar and her husband, just like Nancy Pelosi, probably buying a massive villa on the A1A in South Florida. completely insane. I mean, two clearly shady characters, especially her husband Tim Minette. As we've covered previously, he's been sued for ripping off investors, his cannabis ventures collapsed entirely, and now suddenly he's an investment kingpin. The whole thing reeks of fraud. And we already know that Ilhan Omar got caught before using campaign funds for her personal expenses. She violated Minnesota finance law, not to mention pushing absurd amounts of monies into her husband's firms, and now we're supposed to believe that it's just a coincidence. They're just a classic American success story. Yeah, you know, in a way they are, just not in the right way, in the clearly politically corrupt way. And this is the kind of thing that should infuriate normal Americans, and especially the leftists out there. These are the politicians that carry your woke progressive banners to Washington. They wag their fingers about corporate greed, taxing the rich. Oh, those evil rich people, those evil corrupt Washington people. But they're clearly playing the system harder than anyone else. You know, just like Elizabeth Warren, these people posture as fighters of the poor while using their insider privilege to line their own pockets. You know, just like we've seen with Nancy Pelosi, and now Ilhan Omar is obviously running the same scam, maybe even dirtier to be completely honest. It seems like they might be laundering money through fake businesses, all while she tells you, oh, well, I'm broke. I only have a couple $1,000s to my name. Yeah, but you funneled millions to your husband, then married him. That's now your household wealth that you have access to, and you're clearly using that to cover your tracks. Me personally, oh no, I'm broke. What about your husband? What about the trust accounts? What about the businesses that you're now clearly connected to directly through your husband? I mean, come on. It's the progressive politician's scam. I'm sure Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is probably doing the same thing. The people who scream loudest about fairness, equality, and capitalism being the root of all evil always end up being exposed as the most greedy and most hypocritical. And you know what? Again, it's exposed that capitalism isn't the problem. It's these big government parasites, it's crony capitalism, it's the political corruption behind the scenes. And well, very quickly, it seems like Ilhan Omar is going to become the face of it. You know, that's how it works, I guess, right? Nancy Pelosi paved the way, and now we're stuck with these characters. I could pretty much guarantee you in 10, 20 years, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are still going to be around, and they're probably going to be just like Nancy Pelosi with their $25,000 freezers filled with ice creams, talking about chocolate candy as they shut supply chains down and send people home from work, shut down the economy and destroy people's lives as they live in their fancy gated neighborhoods, getting tended to by all their illegal migrant servants. They're the biggest hypocrites in the world, and they cannot and should not be trusted. When somebody shows you their character, you should take them at their own word. And just like I was saying in the intro, we saw Elizabeth Warren lie about her identity to move forward. That should have been the warning sign. We saw Ilhan Omar engage in clear marriage fraud, immigration fraud. That should have been the warning sign. But of course, how can you get the warning sign if you're a Democrat living under a rock and getting totally propagandized by the lamestream corrupt media? Yeah, the leftoids probably don't even know that this is happening. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.